everybody, I'm Natalie with Missouri Star Quilt Company, and today is our What If series. I'm so excited to teach this quilt. It's going to be super fun. This is the original antique lace from Mom's YouTube video that she filmed several years ago, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But if you will wait, I'll show you one more. All right, so this next one, isn't that cool? Just in a two colorway. It's a black and white version that we used in Mod Block, and I think it's absolutely stunning, but wait until you see what I've got to teach you today. We played with color and we made some really cool effects I think you're gonna love. So here it comes. All right, so take a look at this quilt. I think it turned out just beautifully. It is made using more solid, they're sort of a tonal fabric, but we put colors together that I think look like flowers in a garden. So we have these little flowers and then we have this greenery, and I think it just looks so summery and bright. And it's always super interesting to me what happens when you use colors on purpose in certain areas to create designs and patterns. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're making your own quilt. It's a really fun experiment. So let's go ahead and get started. The construction is essentially the same as the first, but we'll walk through all the steps. Okay, so to make this quilt, you're gonna need 1/8 of a yard of 9 different focal fabrics. And these are the colors that we used on all the flower blocks. I'm calling them flowers because they seem like flowers to me, and then the green ones sort of seem like the greenery or the leaves. So you'll need 1/8 of a yard of 9 focal fabrics, and we've used these beautiful colors from Maywood Studios. You're gonna need a couple of accent fabrics. Now your accent are the greens. So the one that you wanna see more of, in our case we used the light green, that's gonna be 5/8 of a yard, and then the one that you want for your little inner pinwheels, that's 3/8 of a yard. So not too much of either one, but just so you know, that's where they go. So we've used this light green, 5/8 of a yard, and then 3/8 for our second accent fabric. Then we have background. Background, you're gonna need 4 1/4 yards. So for your backing, you'll need 4 1/3 yards if you use regular 45-inch wide fabric, and that's what I chose to use this time. 2 1/4 yards of 108, if you have that on hand or that's what you prefer. I use this beautiful fabric. It's that lovely floral. It matches the colors on the front really well. It's called Bloom Bright Tossed Flowers by Maywood Studios, and I just think it's lovely. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna clear off my table, we'll take the quilt down, and I will show you how to make this version of antique lace on the design wall. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do is take all of those beautiful colored fabrics and cut them into 2.5-inch strips. You're gonna cut your greens also into 2.5-inch strips. Those are your leaves, your foliage. And then your background, you will additionally need 2.5-inch strips, and then you'll need 3-inch strips. So our half square triangles are gonna be squared to 3. So you're gonna subcut some 3-inch squares and some 3 by 5.5-inch rectangles. And the numbers for those are in the pattern. So let me cut a few squares here. I've got these strips already cut, but I'm gonna go ahead and grab a few more squares, and then we will make our half square triangles. The half square triangle method is very easy and simplified for jelly roll strips and makes your whole process go so fast. All right, so we've got some 2.5-inch, or sorry, these are 3-inch squares. And then we've got 3 by 5.5-inch rectangles. So I'm just gonna set these aside. Got some of these already cut up here, but these we're gonna need when we start putting our block together. All right, we are gonna stitch these right sides together on both sides to create a tube. So I will do that real quick, and then we'll talk about squaring these up. You'll wanna use a kind of scant 1/4-inch seam. But don't worry too much about it. You should have plenty of room. It's a no stress method. Keep on making sure this fabric stays nice and straight. Alrighty, then we're going to flip it around and do the other side. Here we go. So we're going to use our Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, and we are going to cut half square triangles to 3 inches. So we're going to line up our seam line on this dashed line here. And you'll notice when you look at this that the point of the trimmer tool goes just a tiny bit over my seam at the top, and you'll just pick those out so it opens right up. And there we go. So we cut across the top and then back down across the bottom. You can pull that away and trim your little edges so that you don't have to deal with those. So then see how these are still just attached? They just pull right apart. It's not a big deal. There's just a few little seams there. And then you'll come from the other side and do the same thing. So you can flip the strip, or you can use a rotating mat. I just like to kind of go back and forth that way. Oh, and if I forget, again, you can just cut that, cut those little dog ears. You want to make sure that the angle goes in towards the inside of the block, and then you won't see those at all. And it's not a cut that ends up being measured against anything, so they don't have to be the same angle or the same nothing. It's just, you just want to cut that fabric away so that it doesn't create bulk in your seam, if that makes sense, hopefully. All right, so we're going to cut all of these half square triangles. The Clearly Perfect tool is the easiest one to use for this method, but if you wanted to, or you didn't have it, we could use our regular square and line that up, but you want to look at where the 3-inch mark is. So it's kind of difficult, but you can see that your 3-inch line is what you want to line up with your seam line here. And if I were you, I would go ahead and line this up, and then I would place a piece of painter's tape perhaps across here, because you really can get the exact same effect with the corner of your square. So I'm making sure here, and I hope you guys can see this on top cam, making sure that the 3-inch line is right in line with the seam on both edges. And then I'm going to cut this across right here, just like that. And then I will flip it around, do the same thing, make sure it's at the 3-inch on that seam line on both sides. That way I keep it nice and straight. And then I'm going to cut back this direction. I'm going to cut my little edges off so that those dog ears are inside. You'll still have the little threads to pull apart at the top, but these end up the same size. Well, let me press them. It'll be a lot easier to show it when they're pressed. Okay. We'll set our seams, and then we'll roll these back to the dark side. Because when you're working with a white background, you'd want to try to have all of your print fabrics pressed to the dark so that you hide that fabric in the seam allowance fabric behind the fabric, so it doesn't show up under your white fabric. I'm going to just show you one more quick thing. So you'll notice this one, I didn't trim them off. And so if you wanted to do that, you could line your ruler up, or you could freehand it if you wanted to. I'm confident enough to do that, but you can also just cut them off at this point in the process, whatever makes more sense to you. So hopefully that helped a little bit with some hints and hacks for squaring. But now that we've got a bunch of half square triangles done, you're gonna do that with all of your print fabrics and your accent fabrics, the greens also, all 3-inch half square triangles. So now we can start by putting things together. So our center block is a pinwheel. That's where we're gonna start. And we've got light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, just like Jenny did. And we're gonna put this pinwheel together with the colors that we chose. You're kind of going to want to go through your fabrics and make pairs, so you have like, oh, I thought the quilt was behind me, but it's not there anymore. You're going to want to put together like your reds and yellows, or your pinks and blues, or purples and pinks, whatever color combinations you like. And then you'll start with the pinwheel in the middle, and then your other color, your accent color for that block will be all the pieces around it. And then out in the corners, that's where your green goes, and that makes that secondary leafy block. All right, so we've got a half square triangle. You stitch that together like a 4-patch, and I'm gonna stick this one right up here on the wall. It's our center, and then we will go from there. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna add our 3 by 5.5 inch strips around the edges here. We're just gonna assemble the whole thing, and then we will stitch it together. So we've got 3 by 5.5s. And they go right up here. I love building blocks out like this because it makes it make so much more sense. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do with our secondary fabric, we're gonna start adding some half square triangles, and these ones go around the outside edges. And I've got some of them stitched together already, but I also have some half square triangles. So we're going in with purple in the corners, and I need that one. These go right in here. I just want to make sure I've got my direction right. Yep. So these go in here like this. All right, so here's our next purple right here. Found that little guy. All right, so our next row, if we're building from the outside, is gonna be more purple half square triangles, and I've sewn them together in kind of a reverse flying geese, or star legs, if you will, whatever you wanna call it. I just put these two together with the white sides touching. So these go right here outside to make that beautiful circle that goes around with all the little half square triangles that creates this really lacy look. And then we've got some 3-inch squares to go on these corners. One there. We've got a couple here. Okay, so then the next color is going to be our light green. Our accent green fabrics are coming right up. And I've actually got these put together in these 4 patches because, well, I'll show you how it goes together, and then I'll plop these ones up because I've already put this unit together. So these go just like this, little square in, and then we've got our more 3-inch squares. There's so many, sometimes I get the halves and the wholes all jumbled up when I'm speaking. All right, so this goes just like this. And this one goes out, I believe, just like so. Okay, so I've got these ones put together, and they're all the same. They go right here. Fills in that corner. All right, so the next section that we're gonna do, it just fills in these little green half square triangles and another 3 by 5.5 inch rectangle. And they go out just like that. And we're gonna continue that all the way around the outside of this block. So I've got these stitched together for simplicity and ease. but these all point out just like so. So it can be repetitive. You've got a lot of things that are going different directions. It makes more sense and can be easier if you put certain pieces together ahead of time. So as you go about assembling, I would recommend putting together these little 4-patch outside units and then stitching these together in rectangles, these ones as well, and then stitch those together and join your whole block on the top. And then I would do the same thing in here, but I would build the middle out. So I'm gonna do this section here and this section here, and then add this to itself so that that's one full piece, and then have these guys in their long strip sets, stitch those together, add it to this middle, and then stitch these ones together. And then again, same as the top, you've got your outside corners and your 2 rectangle strips. So these together, and then so these to that. All right, so what I'm gonna do, the first thing I'm gonna stitch together is this one, because I've already got these 3 done. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab that and sew them up. All right, so you'll see this quilt behind me is so beautiful. These blocks are nice and big, and there's no sashing or cornerstones. They just connect together. So we've got 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3. There's 9 blocks total. It ends up being 69 inches square, and that's because we took out the inner border. So all of the previous quilts had a 2.5-inch white. We just wanted to modernize it a little bit and go with a white 5-inch border. And then we machine quilted it in this lovely Simply Roses pattern. I don't know if you can see that. It's very subtle. We used a quilt that blends in with the background because we want the blocks and the colors to show. So it's just very subtle, real pretty flowers. So the What If series has been so fun for me this year. I love seeing what happens when we play with color and try to get creative with our quilts. I hope that it's inspired you, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial on the What If series antique lace from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. See you next time. Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We're trying super hard to get to 1 million subscribers, so if you enjoyed it and you want to see more, just hit subscribe and share with your friends and encourage them to do the same, and I will see you next Friday with a brand new tutorial.